The Cleveland Browns have always flirted with chaos. It's part of their brand at this point. You don't even need to be a football fan to know that when it comes to dysfunction, this franchise has practically written the manual. But this? The Shedeur Sanders injury debacle? This was the Browns putting the dysfunction car into overdrive, smashing through the guardrail, and tumbling down the mountain in front of the entire NFL world. And at the very center of the firestorm.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Kevin Stefanski, the head coach who, for a brief moment, was seen as the adult in the room. The guy who steadied the ship after years of endless coach roulette. The man who was supposed to bring discipline and competence to an organization that hadn't sniffed consistent relevance in decades. But just like every savior in Cleveland's long line of head coaches, Stefanski has now joined the infamous list of casualties. Because when you mess with a player like Shedeur Sanders, when you mishandle not just his talent, but his health, you're not just fumbling a quarterback. You're fumbling the entire identity of your franchise. Here's how it unraveled. Shedeur comes in as a rookie, already carrying more spotlight than almost any fifth-round pick in NFL history. He's not just Coach Prime's son. He's a cultural lightning rod, a social media magnet, and a quarterback who turned preseason snaps into events. The kind of player Cleveland hasn't had in a generation. One who brings hope, not just stats. And then the Browns do what the Browns always do. They sabotage it. It started with whispers, limited reps in camp, oddly cautious depth chart placements, a subtle refusal to let Shedeur climb, even when his talent was flashing in front of everyone's eyes. Fans started noticing, analysts started questioning, and then came the injury, an oblique issue, something every trainer and doctor in the league knows you don't play around with. But Kevin Stefanski? He downplayed it, brushed it off, talked about day-to-day, like this was some sore ankle instead of a core muscle strain that could derail a young quarterback's rhythm for months. Instead of pulling Shedeur out and protecting him, Stefanski let him grind through reps, pushing a rookie into situations that screamed short-term thinking. And when the truth came out, when fans realized that not only was Shedeur hurt, but he'd been trotted out there like a disposable pawn in Stefanski's desperate playbook of self-preservation, the anger exploded. This wasn't just bad coaching. This was betrayal. Cleveland fans are used to losing. They've lived through Factory of Sadness memes, Johnny Manziel circus acts, Baker Mayfield roller coasters, and more quarterbacks than most people can name in a lifetime. Losing? That's old news. What they can't stomach anymore is mismanagement. Watching potential stars suffocate under the weight of arrogance and incompetence. So, when ownership saw the reaction, the memes roasting Stefanski, the national media calling the Browns a joke again, the fans outside the stadium chanting Shedeur's name, it became clear Stefanski was finished. The firing didn't just come because of one injury. It came because Shedeur Sanders had become the symbol of what the Browns could be, and Stefanski had become the face of why they never are. Think about it. This is a coach who, in his fourth year, was supposed to finally have stability, but instead of nurturing a quarterback who could have electrified the franchise, he played politics. He leaned on veterans like Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel, safe, predictable, uninspiring choices. He treated Shedeur like a side character in his story when, in reality, the kid was the headline act. And then he gambled with Shedeur's health. That was the final straw. Word inside the building is that ownership was furious. Not just about the injury, but about the cover-up, the downplaying, the arrogance in Stefanski's tone when asked about Sanders' status. It wasn't just incompetence, it was condescension. And in Cleveland, where the scars of betrayal run deep, you don't talk down to a fan base that has suffered for decades. Not when the one thing keeping them invested is the possibility of hope. Now, with Stefanski out, the Browns are left staring at the wreckage. Another coach gone. Another scandal. Another cycle of dysfunction. And Shedeur Sanders, the one bright light in all of this, left to wonder whether his career is going to be swallowed by the same vortex that ate everyone before him. The locker room? Don't even ask. Players have seen this movie too many times. When a coach gets fired in Cleveland, it's not a surprise, it's an inevitability. But this one hit different, because Shedeur's teammates saw firsthand how the staff handled him. They saw the way he played through pain, the way the coaches ignored it, and the way Stefanski brushed off questions. Now, trust in leadership isn't just shaken, it's shattered. And for ownership, that's the scariest part. You can fire Stefanski. You can issue a statement about moving in a new direction. But you can't repair the fracture that comes when players feel like their health is negotiable. You can't erase the image of your rookie quarterback grimacing through throws he never should have been asked to make. You can't spin away the narrative that Cleveland just turned a promising start into yet another national punchline. And you definitely can't stop fans from remembering that this cycle of hype, hope, collapse, and cleanup is exactly what has defined the Browns for decades. Let's be real. Shedeur Sanders deserved better. He deserved a coach who saw his potential and treated it like a franchise cornerstone, not a PR stunt. He deserved a staff that protected him, not one that gambled with his future to save their jobs. Instead, he got Kevin Stefanski, and now he gets to live with the aftermath of Stefanski's exit. A storm of media frenzy, internal uncertainty, and the very real possibility that his development has already been set back by an organization that simply doesn't know how to handle its stars. The tragic part? Fans knew this was coming. They always do. Because Cleveland doesn't just lose. It invents new ways to self-destruct. Today, it was Shedeur's injury and Stefanski's firing. Tomorrow? Who knows? Maybe it'll be front office squabbles. Maybe another coaching carousel. Maybe Shedeur himself demanding out after realizing he deserves to be in a franchise that actually knows how to handle success. But right now the Browns are, once again, the league's greatest cautionary tale. A reminder that talent means nothing if the leadership above it is broken. And for Kevin Stefanski, this is the epitaph of his Cleveland career. He had the keys to a Ferrari, and he drove it straight into a ditch. The fans are furious. The owner is embarrassed. The locker room is fractured. And Shedeur Sanders, the kid who could have saved this city, is sitting on the sideline injured. His future as uncertain as the franchise that drafted him. Because in Cleveland, hope isn't just fragile. It's disposable. And once again, they've proven that no matter how much talent you give them, the Browns will always find a way to burn it to the ground. The moment the news broke, Kevin Stefanski fired, the city of Cleveland didn't react with shock. There weren't gasps of disbelief or stunned silences. No, the reaction was a cocktail of relief, sarcasm, and fury. Relief that ownership finally did something. Sarcasm that it took this long. And fury that the Browns, once again, had managed to take a good thing and blow it up before it had even begun. Because let's face it, Stefanski's firing wasn't just about one decision. It wasn't just about Shedeur Sanders' injury. It wasn't even about losing games or mishandling practice reps. It was about something deeper, something Cleveland fans know all too well. It was about trust, or more accurately, the complete lack of it. The Browns have trained their fan base to expect failure. Every time there's hope, every time there's a glimmer of a new era, it comes with an asterisk. And this time, the asterisk's name was Kevin Stefanski. Think about what this franchise did with Shedeur. A rookie quarterback comes in, with charisma, talent, and a story that captured the entire league. His preseason debut wasn't just football, it was theater. Ratings through the roof, fans showing up in droves, analysts actually praising the Browns for once. It was like the entire NFL had paused and said, "Wait a minute, maybe Cleveland has something here." And then, snap, gone. Just like that, the Browns couldn't help themselves. They mishandled his reps, pushed him through pain, brushed off questions, and turned what could have been the start of something magical into another chapter in their book of disasters. The fans weren't stupid. They saw it happening in real time. They saw Shedeur grimacing. They saw the lack of transparency in press conferences. And when Stefanski stood up there, giving vague answers and downplaying the seriousness, it wasn't just insulting, it was triggering. Because they've heard it all before. He's day-to-day. We're just being cautious. He'll be back soon. Those are the lies Cleveland fans have been fed for decades, right before things collapse. And collapse they did. The firing was supposed to be a solution, a signal to the fans that ownership was listening, that they cared, that accountability existed inside this cursed organization. But if you think for 1 second that firing Stefanski fixes anything, you haven't been paying attention. This isn't about one coach. It never is in Cleveland. This is about culture, about an organization that eats its own potential alive. You can't fire your way out of dysfunction. You can't scapegoat one guy when the rot goes all the way to the foundation. But of course, that's exactly what ownership is trying to do. Release a statement, talk about new beginnings, shuffle the deck chairs while the ship sinks. Pretend Stefanski was the problem, and that now, magically, the Browns will turn it around. It's laughable, and every fan knows it. Because what happens next? Another coach, another philosophy, another system, another quarterback controversy, another rebuild, even though Shedeur Sanders should have been the rebuild. And while all that churn continues, Shedeur is sitting there, watching, wondering why the hell he's even in Cleveland in the first place. That's the real danger here, the future of Shedeur Sanders. Because if you're Shedeur, how do you trust this organization after this? How do you believe in a front office that let you get hurt, that failed to protect you, that downplayed your injury, and then fired the coach as if that somehow makes everything better? You can't. You start thinking about your career differently. You start thinking about whether Cleveland is the place where you can actually succeed. And the second those thoughts start creeping in, the clock starts ticking. The Browns may have drafted him, but if they don't change, he's not staying. He'll finish his rookie deal, and then he'll be gone, to a franchise that knows how to handle talent, that understands how to nurture a young star, that doesn't chew through quarterbacks like bubblegum. And the irony? The fans know it too. They've been through this dance enough to recognize the steps. This is how you lose stars. This is how you turn potential icons into footnotes. But here's the kicker. Even with all this chaos, even with Stefanski gone, even with the scandal still fresh, there's still hope. That's the sickest part of being a Browns fan. No matter how many times this team rips your heart out, you can't help but think, maybe this time it's different. Because Shedeur Sanders is that good. He's got the poise, the arm, the intelligence, the charisma. He's got everything you'd want in a franchise quarterback. And deep down, even the most jaded Browns fan knows that if they can just stop being the Browns for 5 minutes, this kid could actually turn it around. But do you trust them to do it? That's the million-dollar question. Ownership is scrambling. The media is circling. Fans are furious. And Shedeur is in limbo. That's the reality of Cleveland football right now. And firing Stefanski doesn't solve it. It just papers over the cracks until the next disaster. And let's not ignore the locker room. Because you think those players didn't see what happened? You think they didn't notice the mishandling, the downplaying, the arrogance? Of course they did. And now, the message is loud and clear. If they can do that to Shedeur, they can do it to anyone. That kind of distrust festers. It spreads. It kills teams from the inside. Players stop buying in. They stop playing with passion. They start looking out for themselves. Because why wouldn't they? If the organization isn't going to protect them, why should they give everything back? That's how you lose not just games, but entire seasons. And this is Cleveland. They've lost enough seasons to know what that looks like. So here we are again. Another coach gone. Another controversy. Another quarterback in danger of being wasted. And another fan base left holding the bag, wondering why they keep believing, why they keep buying tickets, why they keep chanting in the stands when deep down, they know how this story usually ends. The Browns are more than a football team at this point. They're a soap opera, a never-ending cycle of drama, dysfunction, and disappointment. And the saddest part? It's not even surprising anymore. Stefanski's gone, but the dysfunction remains. Shedeur's hurt, but his talent is undeniable. The fans are angry, but they'll still show up. And the Browns? They'll keep being the Browns. Because that's what they do. Unless someone finally breaks the cycle. Unless someone in that front office wakes up and realizes that Shedeur Sanders isn't just another quarterback. He's not just another experiment. He's the franchise. He's the future. And if they blow this, they're not just losing games. They're losing the last shred of credibility they have left. So here's the question, Cleveland. Do you want to be the same old Browns? Or do you finally want to be something more? Because the decision isn't Stefanski's anymore. It's yours. And the clock is ticking. Here's the thing about Cleveland. Dysfunction doesn't stop when you fire a coach. It just mutates. It takes on a new shape. And in the days after Kevin Stefanski's firing, the Browns discovered exactly that. The media circus didn't calm down. It ramped up. Instead of talking about how Stefanski was gone, the conversation immediately shifted to, what now? And the truth is, nobody in Cleveland, not the front office, not ownership, not the players, had a clear answer. Ownership thought firing Stefanski would be the big gesture, the olive branch to fans, the bold move that said, we care. We hear you. We're fixing this. But the fans weren't buying it. You can't erase decades of scars with one pink slip. And when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, the fan base wasn't just demanding accountability. They were demanding assurance. Who's protecting this kid? Who's guiding his development? Who's making sure the Browns don't repeat the same quarterback graveyard routine they've perfected for 30 years? The silence was deafening. Inside the locker room, whispers started immediately. Veteran players began to question not just the coaching staff, but the front office itself. Because firing a coach is one thing, but what does it really mean if the same mistakes keep happening year after year? Guys like Myles Garrett, who've given blood, sweat, and tears to this franchise, looked around and wondered how many more years of their prime they'd waste waiting for Cleveland to figure it out. And then there was Shedeur himself. Injured, frustrated, watching. Make no mistake, this kid has patience, but only so much. He didn't grow up blind to how this league works. He's seen stars mishandled, careers wasted, and franchises crumble because they didn't know how to treat talent. And you can bet his father, Deion Sanders, has been in his ear, reminding him that no brand is worth being stuck in a broken system. So when Shedeur watched Stefanski go down in flames, you have to imagine what he was thinking. Am I next? Because that's what this comes down to. The Browns can't just lose another coach. They can't afford to lose the quarterback who could change everything. But they're teetering dangerously close. And then the rumors started. Oh, you knew they were coming. Cleveland is one of those markets where every whisper gets amplified. Reporters started floating names, college coaches, failed NFL retreads, assistants with shiny resumes, but no proof they could handle the weight of Cleveland's dysfunction. And fans weren't impressed. Jim Harbaugh's name popped up. Lane Kiffin. Even talk of bringing back Josh McDaniels, which might as well be a cruel joke. Because let's be real, this isn't about plugging in just any coach. This is about finding someone who can protect Shedeur Sanders, who can manage the circus, who can turn this into a football story instead of a tabloid headline. And Cleveland? History says they'll botch it. Meanwhile, the national media feasted. ESPN ran segments on Cleveland's curse, the next chapter. Talk radio compared Shedeur's situation to Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. Talent wasted by an incompetent front office. Even social media had its field day. Memes of Stefanski holding a "How to Ruin a Quarterback" manual. Clips of Shedeur's preseason highlights paired with captions like, "This is what they benched. It was brutal, but it was deserved." And ownership? They hate being embarrassed. You think Jimmy Haslam and the rest of the Browns brass enjoy seeing their team turned into a late-night punchline again? Of course not. Which is why Stefanski's firing wasn't just about accountability. It was about optics, damage control. But firing one man doesn't fix a culture. And the Browns have a culture problem the size of Lake Erie. Think about it. How many quarterbacks have they ruined? How many coaches have they chewed up and spit out? And now, they're on the verge of doing it again, with maybe the one quarterback who could finally drag them out of mediocrity. And here's the part that makes fans lose their minds. They know Shedeur Sanders is different. You can feel it when he plays. He's got that calm, that poise, that intangible presence you can't teach. When he steps onto the field, he doesn't just play quarterback. He commands it. That's why his preseason debut drew millions of viewers. That's why every fan in Cleveland can see the potential. And that's why mishandling him feels less like incompetence and more like sabotage. Which brings us back to Stefanski. Because when you strip everything else away, the injury, the mismanagement, the vague press conferences, what really sealed his fate was this. He underestimated Shedeur's power. Not just his arm, not just his accuracy, his power, his ability to move fan bases, to move ratings, to move narratives. That's something Cleveland hasn't had in decades. And Stefanski treated it like background noise. Ownership couldn't let that slide. The NFL is a business, and Shedeur isn't just a quarterback, he's a brand. And when you endanger the brand, when you risk tarnishing the golden ticket, you're out. Period. But firing Stefanski doesn't stop the questions. Who steps in? Who leads this team now? Who makes sure Shedeur isn't just the next name on Cleveland's endless list of what-if quarterbacks? Because here's the harsh reality. Shedeur Sanders doesn't need the Browns. The Browns need him. This is bigger than Cleveland. This is bigger than wins and losses. Shedeur is a cultural figure. He can drive ratings, sell jerseys, fill stadiums, all while building his legacy. And if Cleveland doesn't give him the platform to do that, some other franchise will. You think teams like the 49ers, the Cowboys, or even the Raiders wouldn't line up to grab him if he ever hit the trade market? Please. They'd sell the stadium to make room for him. So Cleveland has a choice. Protect Shedeur. Build around him. Prove to the fans, and to him, that this franchise can actually grow up and be serious. Or lose him. Maybe not this year, maybe not next, but eventually. And when that happens, the Browns don't just lose a quarterback. They lose the one shot they've had in years to rewrite their entire history. And here's the kicker. The fans know it. They've been chanting Shedeur's name louder than any player since LeBron James wore a Cavaliers jersey. They see him as the savior, the chosen one. And if Cleveland fails him, that betrayal will cut deeper than anything this franchise has ever done. So, yeah, Stefanski's gone. But that's not the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where the spotlight burns hotter than ever. Where every decision the Browns make is going to be dissected. Where Shedeur Sanders' every move will be measured against the incompetence of the people around him. And if the Browns mess this up, They won't just be cursed, they'll be clowned forever. Because you don't mishandle a player like Shedeur Sanders and walk away unscathed. Not in this league. Not in this era. Cleveland wanted to reset with a firing. Instead, they've just lit the fuse on their biggest test yet.